Hello, and welcome to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Stephanie, and I am a Divine Soul Blueprint Realignment Practitioner. If you are returning, welcome back to my channel, and so good to see you guys. So today we're going to be discussing soul blueprints, the Akashic Records, and everything in between, what it all means, etc. This is the second time I'm discussing soul blueprints on my extended content channels such as YouTube, my podcast, things like that. And I'm going to try to go a bit more in depth on what it all is. The last video I had done on YouTube was about 2 years ago. I had done some snippets on TikTok and things like that. But I'm going to do like a comprehensive deep dive right now with you guys and get into what the Akashic Records are, what soul blueprints are, why it's helpful, why it's relevant, and everything in between. So, the Akashic Records, if you have not heard of them before, it's essentially an etheric level storage database. Like, think of the cloud for your phone, right? You can pull information that you have stored in the cloud, but like it's stored somewhere, right? That's exactly how the Akashic Records work. It's like a network that encompasses everything, everywhere, all over the ether, and it contains information about everything, everywhere, all at once. Like a movie. Good. That was a good movie, by the way. But anyway, it contains information about everything that is, has been, or will be, basically. It sounds kind of radical to think about, but when thinking about how quantum physics is now proving things that we thought we understood and we don't understand, and quantum physics is explaining how we are way more connected than we ever really thought. So I think this is a beautiful segue getting into what the soul blueprints are. So soul blueprints are like a subcategory of the Akashic Records, in that the Akashic Records are like the storage database, like the cloud, and soul blueprints are but one way to work with the Akashic Records, and they contain a certain set of information. So what does that mean? Essentially, with soul blueprints, everybody has a soul blueprint. And whether or not you get a reading about this or whatever, everybody has this information very, very, very deep within inside them. Like the same way that when you build a house, there's a blueprint that goes with it. And the blueprint tells you exactly how something's supposed to be designed, how something is supposed to be structured, put together, everything like that. The same goes for divine soul blueprints. So what does that mean, right? Each and every single one of us is designed a specific way, a unique way. We all have unique factorials, essentially, of this information, and it creates energetically the uniqueness of who you are, right? So soul blueprints can be broken up into a few different categories as a whole. And there are different readings that I offer on my site. If you're interested, you can check that out for more information regarding other ones besides the one I'm talking about. But essentially, I'm explaining what blueprints are as a whole. So within a soul blueprint, somebody's soul blueprint, there are many different parts to it that make it up. And there are probably, I would say, 3 main pieces to it. The first one is like your soul status, okay? That sounds like really elusive, I guess, I don't know. But what that means essentially is just understanding if you have any blocks to truth, to your soul. Like, are you able to access the truth of who you are? The more that you are self-aware, you probably won't have any of these blocks. And this, as well as the negative karmic patterns that I'm going to get into a bit later, these are all things that you can do by yourself, even without this information. Like, this information is essentially the cheat code. So if you're having trouble sorting out who you authentically are because of what society has done to us as a whole and kind of made us conform a certain way, this is so helpful. This is something that when I had my soul blueprint done before I was a practitioner, I was told some of my information and I literally started crying because I just thought I was like weird for thinking the things that I thought. I thought I was weird for feeling the way that I did, but it turns out that everything that I felt weird about was exactly my blueprint. Like, it's who I am as a soul. And the more that like I understood that, the more I could lean into that. And here I am, as a result, continuing to speak about this because it was such a profound change in my life, having my blueprint done, okay? So going back to soul status, there are blocks to truth that we can incur, and none of these are like bad per se. Like, you're not like a bad person for accruing blocks to truth. These are things that happen as a subconscious way to protect your soul, okay? And one of them happens literally unconsciously at birth. It's called a shell. And that's something that we kind of just do. If you think of an example of like a video game, and I've only ever played a few video games. One of them was Fortnite, okay, back in the day. And you know when one of the players will like kind of be unalived, and then all of their stuff is just on the ground and you like go and pick it up? That's kind of what a shell is, basically. Like, somebody around the vicinity of like probably the hospital that you were born in, because that's such a mainstream way to be born, obviously, in the Western society. There are lots of people passing away all the time there. So there are lots of emotional shells that people can pick up. And it acts as a defense mechanism. It acts as like an armor. And it serves a purpose to a degree, but at the same time, it creates a block to your own truth, and it confuses who you are. Okay, and there are other ones and things like that, but we're gonna move now into the soul profile portion of a soul blueprint, okay? So within a soul profile, there are a few different main components, and some of them don't change, some of them do change. So first and foremost is going to be your primary energy center. About 70% of people have a singular primary energy center. I am one of those people. And about the other 30% have two energy centers as like a primary and secondary that make up the same chunk as somebody else's primary. So it's actually easier to have only a primary energy center because you don't have to balance the energy of the two other energy centers, you know what I mean? So me, for example, my primary energy center, I bet you could probably guess, is my third eye. It has to do with divine truth. So divine truth is a subjective truth. So it's not universal wisdom in the sense, but it's helping people access their own unique subjective truth, your own perspective authentically, as well as clairvoyance and things like that, which is also why I have these kind of paranormal things that I talk about on my TikTok channel, which is my primary platform, by the way. If you're finding me here for the first time, I'm very excited. And you can also check out my TikTok if you're interested. It's the same username, StephanieAmber07. And I talk more about all the metaphysical things like this. But essentially, because that's my primary energy center, I receive abundance when I speak my own subjective truth, when I help other people find their own subjective truth, even if it's not necessarily my truth, because I'm helping other people find their authenticity. That is what brings me abundance. And same thing with clairvoyance and utilizing the psychic component of this energy center. All of those things can contribute to my abundance because that's how I was designed, okay? So you might wonder why some people inherently are really good at something that you want to be really good at, and you're trying and you just can't seem to make it work, but somebody just seems to do it effortlessly. It's probably because that is in line with their energy center, okay? So there are 8 energy centers that we can have, and we also have a potential for something called a secondary God spark, which is really cool. And that only occurs when you essentially require more energetic fuel, so to speak, to achieve certain goals that will help the collective. It's usually when you are doing something that will make a big impact on other people and help a lot of other people, okay? I actually had a candidacy for a secondary God spark. So that can happen when you are coming to a point in your life where there's like a fork in the road and you can make a decision. And one of those decisions is going to be that path that I mentioned of helping people and, you know, kind of on a larger scale that you need more energy center energy for, I guess, for lack of better words. And mine was the 5th energy center, which is the throat chakra. So it has to do with communication, okay, whether that's writing, speaking, whatever it may be. And I'm actually working on 2 books right now, and hopefully one of those will be published soon. But of course, I create content here as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if that secondary candidacy had turned into a secondary God spark, because I am continuing down this path. So I hope that explains that a little bit better. And it's not like a bad thing to have no secondary God spark, and it's not like a great thing. You know what I mean? It's simply what it is. It's energetic resources to help you achieve a goal, especially if that goal is collective minded. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And there's no one better energy center than another, okay? We are all here for different purposes. We're all here to bring something unique to the collective. And that also pairs, our primary energy center, pairs with the soul group of origination, okay? So this one might be a little bit different, a little bit, I don't know, less conventional. And just stay with me. So even if this isn't your school of thought, that's okay. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. And I am simply speaking from the perspective of a divine soul blueprint practitioner, okay? So the soul group of origination essentially means, like, think of it in terms of your nationality, right? I am here living in the United States. I am American. So that would be my nationality. So with your soul group of origination, it essentially is like your soul nationality, right? Like where you come from, energetically speaking, in the universe. So we may think that we're just here on this earth and that's it. And whatever thought frame you have, that's okay. Like I said, take what resonates, leave what doesn't. And essentially, we all incarnate from various groups, okay? And where we first incarnate, like where we are originated, what our soul nationality is, doesn't shape us, but rather we incarnate for the first time, we originate our nationality where it is most vibrationally alike us, okay? So most people on Earth right now are in fact what we call earther souls, which just means that their souls did in fact originate on Earth. This is their first like home base, right? And a lot of earther souls are very content in superficiality and negativity, which is why a lot of times we see that kind of going on. And negativity serves a lot of these souls well. But of course, everything is a duality, right? So we have an equal amount probably of positive and negative souls on the planet. And that's not like a bad thing in the sense of we live inherently in a dualistic reality. So of course, we're going to need to have that balance, right? So there are definitely positive earther souls, there are definitely negative earther souls. That doesn't mean anything bad about this person, it's simply their energy, right? So we also have various other soul groups that come from around the galaxy, even outside of our galaxy. And one of the really cool ones, actually, one of my good friends, she has a parallel life soul. Like that is her soul group of origination, is a parallel universe. Crazy, I know, right? And we don't have a ton of information on that one, which is so interesting, I think. And it makes sense, I guess, because there are a lot of different parallels it could come from. But anywho, that is the one that we have like the least amount of information on. We have a lot that do originate within the galaxy, and some of you are probably familiar with the term Pleiades, the Pleiadians, and that is in fact one of the soul groups, as is Alpha Centauri, and there are others, okay? And believe it or not, we also do have draconian souls, And some of them can be positive. It's not inherently a negative thing. I did have a client once that was a positive draconian soul. And that can essentially happen where you choose your destiny, right? Like you might inherently be oriented one way, but you can actively choose to lean into the positive side of it, okay? Just because you are given this set of energetic, I don't know, gifts and constraints, so to speak. Like I mentioned, we live in a dualistic reality. So there is a positive and a negative side to literally all of this. So for example, like I used the example of my primary energy center earlier being the sixth divine truth. There are positive and negative aspects to that. So that is also the beauty of having your divine soul blueprint read and getting this information, because you are essentially given the cheat sheet of your energy type. So basically it tells you what it's like for you when you're out of alignment, okay? And what it's like for you when you're in alignment. So with the sixth energy center being in alignment with divine truth, I will feel free to speak about my perspective. I will feel, energized by helping other people find their truth. And that's a way that you can also understand, even if you don't get a reading, that's a good way you can understand what fuels you rather than drains you. Okay, right? So that would be the more positive aspect of that energy center that I mentioned. And then the negative component of that would be judgment. It would be, wow, nobody's hearing me, everyone's lame, like, you know what I mean? Like it would be resentment rather than me finding where I'm supposed to be communicating my truth to, if that makes sense, okay? So it's not that we are doomed by our, our birth given stuff. Like, yes, that is in fact a challenge. We do need to learn to orchestrate with our gifts, with our blueprint and energy and all of those things. But like I mentioned, we are able to essentially make different choices. So I want to emphasize right here, right now, that is the biggest part of soul blueprints. Okay, I'm going to say that again. This is the biggest part of soul blueprints, is taking accountability. Okay, it is being completely in charge of your reality. It is understanding that you are the creator of your own reality, which is why I also love this work so much. It is so empowering, and it really emphasizes how we accrue blocks in our soul blueprint, which I'll get into the next section, and why, and how to not do that again, okay? So they are actually so easy. I'll start in that section now, actually. So the next section, negative blocks and restrictions. So we can have negative blocks and restrictions coming from past lives. They can be happening from this present life, and we won't even know that they're impacting us, especially if they came from a past life, because we have no frame of reference besides this current lifetime. So we were born into that circumstance already. That seems like normal to us. And because we don't have the perspective of anybody else, we think it's normal. We think, oh, no, I'm fine there. But in reality, we've just never had that cleared. And we've just been operating like that. So I'm going to give you an example. One type of block and restriction that can be present is a constraint. And a constraint is essentially like an energetic straitjacket. Like we are essentially foregoing our choice to appease somebody else because it is easier that way. Okay, so the example my soul blueprint teacher gave us in the certification process was in the sense of potentially an arranged marriage. Like say there is a culture that is applicable in, right? And you are born into that culture and it's like normal, that's how everything always has been. But then you come along and you don't want that. You say, I really don't want to do that. And that's how you feel inside truly. But you go along with it anyway because that's just how it is. that will literally put a constraint into your divine soul blueprint, and it basically restricts the amount of energy flow that you have coming in, because you are now living for other people. You are now living in a way that is benefiting other people as opposed to yourself. And I want to be clear, this is not me saying we should be selfish. This is not me saying we should, be reckless and disregard other people. But the point being, we are here to create our own experience. Okay? Other people are capable of being disappointed. Other people have expectations for us for sure, but that's not necessarily right or good. So it is societally easier to go along with these things, but that is, for example, how you get a constraint in your divine soul blueprint. Like I mentioned, it will limit your energy flow and it can cause other problems and restrictions. So these negative blocks and restrictions, they come about in kind of patterns, so to speak. So you can have a whole bunch of blocks and restrictions, right? But it will be consolidated into a few negative karmic patterns. And you can think of these as strings of blocks and restrictions. And they are essentially like domino effects. Like one is usually the primary start. And then because we are off in energy, we are inherently and unconsciously trying to fix that. But we don't know how or why, and we don't really know how to fix it. So we end up making choices that actually can end up making things worse. So again, like I mentioned, these are all things that we can clear on our own by making choices that are in alignment to our soul blueprint. Again, it's just really hard when society has kind of gaslit us to act and be like people we are inherently not sometimes, okay? So that is the part where it gets really confusing and hard to do this work on your own, especially if you are somebody who had that experience in the system that we grew up in, live in. So with that, the negative karmic patterns are not like, again, you're not like a bad person for having negative karmic patterns. These are things that everybody has. I had a bunch. I still have a bunch. Like I literally do this work and it happens because they are so subtle of choices and so subtle of things that we do. We're not even aware that we're doing it. You know what I mean? You don't get like a real life notification being like, hey, by the way, you just downloaded a constraint. It's not like that. So that also does make it harder because we might not be aware of these energies that we're perpetuating. We might not be aware of them. So another one that is really important and very, very common is a golden web tear. Okay, so our golden web, everybody has a golden web, and you can think of it as like an aura. It basically envelops your body and extends beyond it. And it attaches at the energy centers. Okay, you can think of them as your chakra points, the main 7. And these golden web tears essentially create energetic leakages. And you can think of that as like the lining of a pool, right? If there's a rip in the lining of a swimming pool, the water's gonna start slowly leaking out, and you're not gonna know why. You're not gonna know exactly where the tear is until you go in and look for it, but you can see that there's something wrong. You can see that the water levels are going down, your energy levels are going down. And it essentially is the same thing in a golden web tear. The golden web tears, like I mentioned, can be at the chakra points. And for example, when I had my first soul blueprint done, I had a golden web tear to my heart. Okay, I also had one in my sacral center. And these can come about because of different negative experiences. And I want to pause and clarify the difference here between a positive choice and experience and a negative one. This will very much depend on your blueprint specifically. It depends on your energy center. It depends on your soul group of origination. It depends on so many different things as to what is a positive choice for you. Because what's a positive choice for you could be a negative choice for me. And you won't really know that until you are very familiar with yourself. And again, that's why these blueprints are so helpful. So with making a negative choice for your soul type can result in golden web tears, for example. So it can also be a very common choice, for example, like loving somebody to your detriment, like somebody that is not giving you the time of day. It is just never going to be a good choice to stay in that connection. You know what I mean? Relationships are inherently designed to be a give and take. It's a two-way street. And if you are not getting the same energy levels back as you're giving, that's an indication that there's maybe something off, okay? And that is something that can result in a golden web tear to the heart chakra, like putting yourself last over other people who don't care about you. And then that can create a lot of hurt, a lot of trauma, and it can literally create a tear in your heart chakra. And then it will manifest as having trouble with self-love, trouble with loving others. And these are things, like I mentioned, if you were born like this, meaning these tears came from a past life, you may not think that you have this problem. You might not see it. You might think, no, I love myself. I love other people. That's what I thought, okay? And it's really not the case until you have that cleared. And then you can feel the difference. You can feel how intense it is not having that block there, not having that tear, because you are getting more energy and you're feeling it in a different way. There's no longer a wound there, okay? It's now cleared. So that's an awesome part also of the soul blueprint work that I do. So we do the reading of your soul blueprint, but I also clear all of these blocks and restrictions that I'm talking about for you. So the way that I like to describe this is essentially as if you hired me to come clean your house. And I came in and I cleaned your house and I deep cleaned it and I found problem areas and I figured out exactly why that was happening and how to stop it. So basically what we do is discuss all of this and bring all of this information into your conscious awareness so that moving forward, you can make different choices. Because here's the thing, I clean the house, it looks great and it'll stay clean for about 3 weeks. But the thing is, if you don't upkeep it, it's going to get dirty again. It's going to revert back to the same patterns, okay? And that's why it's so important to understand that this work is an empowering type of work. This is work if you are willing to take accountability and you want to become the creator of your own life again. It's hard. It's not necessarily easy. It's hard, but it is definitely worth it. And I would not change what I've done for anything. In fact, I'm excited to keep continuing. I did just get certified in the second level of soul blueprints, which is exciting. So I offer new readings now as well, in addition to the one that I just described. The one that I just described is the Divine Soul Blueprint reading and clearing. And now that I am certified in level 2, I can do things like meet your spirit guides. And with that one, you can understand like what they look like, who they are, what purpose they serve for you, how they try to communicate and nudge you in different ways, right? And I also do relationship readings and clearings. It doesn't have to be romantic. It can be like friendships. It can be even coworkers, different things like that. But essentially it'll tell you how many past lives you guys have had together, what the dynamic was between you and all of them, and clear again any blocks that are between you, potentially causing problems in your present day relationship. And I do chakra analysis, and I'm also doing a Divine Soul Blueprint mentorship program. So if you're interested in working with me in like a coaching kind of capacity, we are going to utilize your soul blueprint to find out exactly what's a positive and negative choice with you. I'm going to work alongside you and body double, hold some accountability to help you achieve your goals. So basically you would come to me with a goal that you're also looking to achieve, and I would do a second level soul blueprint clearing on top of the first one that I just described, where we basically clear out any negative blocks and restrictions in your present life that are actively blocking you from achieving this goal. So we work together to incorporate all this information, to analyze it, and to move forward in our lives. So if you're interested in any of those, you can check them out on my website, stephanieforlini.com, and I will put it in the description below as well. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know, please. I hope that this was like a bit more informative of a soul blueprint explanation and what it is, what it does, why it's important, why it's relevant, why it's helpful. Because I know for me, and a lot of the times that I've heard from other people, they didn't know what soul blueprints were. I didn't know what soul blueprints were until I needed to have mine cleared. So it can be really tricky to understand what these are. And again, this isn't, how do I word this? I want you guys to be able to do this on your own, regardless if you get a reading or not, which is why I'm giving you this information of like, understand what gives you more energy, understand, what feels good for you, and understanding the power that your choice has. So for anybody who is interested, like I mentioned, you can feel free to check out my website. Feel free to message me if you have any questions. My email is spiritualitywithsteph@gmail.com. Again, I'll put that in the description. And I really appreciate you guys and your interest, even if it was just to kind of understand a new perspective, learn something new about a different topic within the realm of spirituality. And I love chatting with you guys about this, and I hope this was helpful and informative. If you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments. And if you've ever heard of soul blueprints or haven't and want to share your thoughts, I'd love to hear them. So I hope you guys are all doing really well. It was so great chatting with you, and I will see you next time.